It's a good parallel between these drag queen shows that are inappropriately sexualized for children and what's happening with the trans ideology in the other lane, because both of them involve a parent, I think, working out his or her own issues with their child, on their child, right? Like, what other parent would take a 3-year-old and say they're, quote, transitioning and start them down the line on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones? You know, we've seen it play out with this Jazz Jennings on national television, where this person is going through torture with all these surgeries. And the parent, I mean, it's got to have something to do with the parent and their own problems.
Well, and even worse, Megyn, is what we've seen in many of these clinics, these so-called gender clinics, where the parents are cut out of the deal. I mean, imagine your mother. I mean, imagine your own kids going to school, you send them to school, and then find out that a counselor or someone else behind your back has said, there's something wrong with your gender. You need to transition to a different gender. And then they start them on therapies, and then they start them on hormone treatments. And then maybe they recommend a surgery that will permanently change their body and sterilize them. And this happens without the parents being involved or knowing or consent. We're talking about minor children here. This is insane. This is why in the UK, they've shut down many of these gender clinics, but here in the United States, they are proliferating. And again, this is happening in my home state, Megyn. We've got a case right now in St. Louis, Missouri, where we have a gender clinic where whistleblowers have come forward and said kids were given hormone treatments, sterilization drugs, and sometimes surgeries without the parents' knowledge, without the parents' consent, sometimes without the patient's full consent. This is crazy. It has become a religion of the left. Mm-hmm. And all I can say is the fact that anytime you stand up and say, wait a minute, maybe it's not a good idea to have these kind of surgeries, to have these kind of things going on without parents knowing about it. To your point a moment ago, maybe it's not a good idea for little kids to be put in front of drag queens and these sexualized shows. The fact that the left then melts down anytime you say anything like that really shows you, I think, just how radical and frankly sort of religiously ideological it has become on the left. And I just think it's out of touch with reality. And parents look at this and they say, whoa, what is happening here?
It's infuriating how important it is to these people to have my child see an inappropriate sexualized show. I mean, right. No, I don't want it at school, and I don't want it at the public library, and I don't want it for anybody's kid, frankly. I don't think it's appropriate. I worry about other kids getting groomed and getting molested, even if they're not my own, of course, like most sane citizens do. 60+% of the American adult population is against drag queens performing in front of children because they're not lunatics. But on your point, I think it's Finland, Sweden, and the UK have all now reverted to therapy, talk therapy, being the first line of defense for children who say they have some sort of gender dysphoria or they think they were born in the wrong body, et cetera. Here in the United States, there's actually a proposal by the Biden administration to call that conversion therapy, to call talk therapy for kids who might have some gender confusion. And why wouldn't they when it's being shoved down their throats by their schools and so on? They're calling that conversion therapy now, and there's a push to ban it. So you can't even to have somebody sit with a knowledgeable psychologist or psychiatrist and figure out whether it's my parents' divorce or my eating disorder that's causing these feelings, et cetera. We're just so backwards on this, Senator.
Yes, and I think, again, because the radical left has pushed us here. And also, Megyn, I mean, you've reported on this for many years. You know the drill here, follow the money, right? All of these clinics, these gender clinics are popping up all over the United States. Where's the money coming from? I mean, who is paying for, who has a financial interest in pushing kids toward gender reassignment surgeries and pushing kids toward hormone therapy drugs that cost tens of thousands of dollars and often have to be continued for a lifetime? So I've just said when it comes to the gender clinic in my state, in the state of Missouri, where we've now had multiple whistleblowers come forward and say kids were shoved through this process. They were given, psychiatrists signed off on gender reassignment without actually ever having met the children. The children were not informed, and I do mean children, they're minors, were not informed of the consequences of these treatments. Parents were kept in the dark, and magically somebody paid for all of these incredibly expensive treatments, and the clinic made money on it. Who's making the money? Why are they making the money? I mean, these are the things I think we've got to get a handle on. And again, as these proliferate in the United States, every parent in America has the right to know what drugs their kids are being prescribed, if the school is recommending counseling or particularly hormonal therapy behind the parent's back. And I think, Megyn, this is why parents' rights, we're just talking about basic things in schools, has become so important, so salient in our country. And as a parent of 3 kids myself, 3 small kids, 2 of whom are school age, boy, I can totally relate.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like there's an active effort to turn them. I've said many times, we pulled our kids from this New York City private school, one of the best schools in the country, because our 2 boys were being asked, our older boy, who was in 4th grade, on a weekly basis if he was sure he was still a boy. On a weekly basis, they had the boys raise their hands if they were sure they were still a boy or less sure. I mean, these are kids who have no gender confusion. It's being actively injected. And this is why I love the exchange. You wrote about it in part in your book that you had with this lunatic Berkeley law professor. It really was one of those things like the dress that people thought was either blue or yellow, right? Or like, if you looked at this and you were like more, I would say sane, you would obviously say that you had the right. And then the far left looked at this and they were like, yes, you go, girl, for the woman who was challenging you. I'll play it for the audience and get you to weigh in. It's SOT 4.
You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist
I'm
is
denying that
dangerous.
trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So you are
pregnant.
denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're
they're
told
allowed
that they're
to question.
opening up people to violence?
We have a good
by
time in my
questioning?
class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot
I
just in this
know.
exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
My God. So what does that exchange tell us that you had with this woman?
Well, what it tells you is just, again, how radical the left has become. And now it is a tenet of faith with them. And I do mean faith, Megyn, because it has nothing to do with facts, that there's no such thing as gender. That the category of woman doesn't exist and the category of man doesn't exist. And if you challenge that and you say, hold on, there is such a thing as a biological reality of womanhood and manhood, and women get pregnant, men don't get pregnant, then they melt down and say, you are promoting violence. I mean, it really is, it's an authoritarian strand, Megyn, where either you agree with them or you're not just a bad person, you're a violent person and your views need to be suppressed. That's the ideology at work here. But we just need to tell the truth, which is this is an incredibly destructive ideology. To pretend that women don't exist and aren't real and that anybody can just opt into being a woman, that's what gets us with biological men taking over women's sports. That's what gets us with biological men in girls' locker rooms. That's what gets us to all of the dysfunction we see now, where women are threatened by these men in their spaces because the left now says there's no such thing as a woman. And by the same token, there's no such thing as a man. It's crazy.
I know many of you make money freelancing or running a solo small business. You probably love the flexibility and control, but hate the crushing busy work, right? You could hire a bunch of different people like a CPA, bookkeeper, even an attorney, and end up paying thousands of dollars a month. Or you could use Collective. Now listen to this. Collective is the all-in-one financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self-employed entrepreneurs. Collective handles all of your corporate formation and compliance paperwork, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, even your payroll. It's the perfect marriage of technology and human tax and accounting experts. If you've already made money this year but don't have an S Corp election, right now through June 30th, Collective can save you thousands on taxes in 2023 because they're able to backdate your S-Corp election to January 1st. In fact, Collective members save on average $10,000 per year on their taxes. Act now before June 30th to save potentially thousands of dollars in your 2023 taxes. Go to collective.com to save on taxes this year and have someone who knows what they're doing handle your setup, accounting, and bookkeeping and taxes, even your personal taxes. That's collective.com, and tell them Megyn sent me. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.